remarks, or during the Q&A, I'll ask him a question about it, because that's one of the things I hear the most questions about from the community. What's going on with the soil? What's going on with the heavy metals? All right, so without further ado, take it away, Ryan.
Thank you, Sean. Hi, everybody. A lot of faces I know, some new faces. I grew up in Aptos and went to Aptos High, Career College, UCSC, and SLO. And I went on to the East Coast for about 27 years, went to Georgetown. I say I'm a blue-collar guy with a white-collar education. Studied international affairs, my friends. Some of them are now ambassadors. It's great. It's wonderful. Met my first wife. We started a winery out there. And it was a big winery. It's a wonderful experience. And I got very involved in local affairs. Economic development community, very red community. I'm more on the blue side myself, but I had a lot of really wonderful friends who were really good people. Across the spectrum, we cared about our community. Got very involved in that. So I came back about 2.5 years ago to be here with my parents, closer to them. They get older. They all get older. Being their old friends. I used to live 2 blocks from here. And we moved to Prunedale with my second wife, my beloved wife Angie, and our 7-year-old son Atticus, our one and only. So on the night of the 16th, we were up on a hilltop. We can see the stacks. I love the stacks. They're the reference point of my life in some ways. And we saw that there was a fire. And we decided to leave. We went to San Francisco and showed Atticus a good weekend. I came back on Sunday, and my wife came back with Atticus on Monday. Saturday morning, Angie started a Facebook group, which we call the Symptoms Group. And by the end of the day on Saturday, there were 1,000 people there. Sunday, there were 2,000 people there. There's now 4,000 people there. Many of you were there. Tanya, who's here, Tanya Rivera, we call her our fearless leader because she's the one that started this. I get to blame her for all the wonderful things that have happened in the way of the people in particular that I've been able to meet. Which is about the only good thing about this. She reached out to Angie and said, I'd like to get our community together. We all met for the first time on that Monday, the weekend of the fire, and figured out what we wanted to try and do for our community. And we got together at 6 o'clock, and we've just kind of been going from there. And I facilitated it because that's another thing I've done. So let me tell you a little bit about what I've learned, because I'm kind of a node. I connect people, I connect ideas, I connect things as best I can. First off, I've been hearing from people all over the world. It's sad, but there's probably more awareness in many communities around the world about what's happening here than in our own backyard. It just seems like that's how life is this day. We're all so busy. So, first off, what came out of the plant? Upwards of 5,000 tons of heavy metals. Manganese, cobalt, nickel, and lithium. I didn't know this, but these batteries make their own oxygen. You can burn them in space. So they burn really hot. Hot enough to vaporize those metals into nanoparticles. They found chunks. You probably saw some pictures. Dr. O'Donnell found chunks over there in the slough. This big. So we don't know how much of that was in chunks, but we know a lot of it went out in nanoparticles. So that means that over 5 days that fire was burning, especially in the first couple of days when it was superheated. It was like a volcano. It pushed all this metal up into the air, and it hit the marine layer, went sideways, and kind of worked its way around the bay. And EPA said that they were checking for hexafluorine and that it had been destroyed. That's not true, but that's a separate issue. I'll get to that. But the metals they never tested for. For some reason, they didn't think that it mattered enough to test for these metals. So those nanoparticles were breathed in by tens of thousands of people. And if you want to see what that's going to do to some of those people. Oh, by the way, that's 250 semi-trucks worth of toxic metals that went in the air. Up to 250 semi-trucks worth of 18-wheelers worth of metals. Run the math. Now, it might have been less. Nobody knows for sure. But it's up to that amount. That comes from a scientist who did some back and napkin stuff early on based upon the numbers that were provided by the companies and what was inside of that building. A lot of people don't know this, but that building was approved by the Planning Commission. Didn't go before the Coastal Commission, which gets involved if you want to move a window in your house.
Yeah.
You used to be a carpenter. It didn't go before the Board of Supervisors. And the reason for that is because the plant had been there since the 50s. They were just looking to change out some equipment, right? Or they talked to the company side. That's the Planning Commission. What's on the Planning Commission in a rural community? Moms and pops and farmers and small businessmen. That's where you get involved, right? School board, Planning Commission. They didn't know what they were approving. The state checked all the boxes and said that, hey, do it. We're okay with this. So, let's talk a little bit about the hexafluorine. I'm a really positive guy, and I'm sorry I'm standing here on the verge of tears. I'm sorry. The hexafluorine is incredibly toxic, as we know. The EPA said it was completely destroyed. But all the indications are, we're still trying to run this down, is that it went up because it's lighter than air. By the way, all those testing stations they have on the ground, pointless. Near as I can tell, pointless, because lithium is, hexafluorine is lighter than air. So it's going up. It's not blanketing down over those monitoring stations. It's going up. So you have this volcanic type situation, pushing that up to a couple thousand feet in the air. It hits the marine layer. By the way, when hexafluorine, and you can Google this, mixes with salt in the air, it turns into hydrochloric acid and hydrofluoric acid. So that's moving out across our community. People are breathing that in too. Probably hundreds of people with breathing problems, such as my wife. I don't know if it was the metal which can cause that, or if it was the acid. So why are there only a few hundred people that are all over Facebook? Because these are the people that got covered in COVID. People with bronchial issues, people with pre-existing conditions, immuno issues. My wife was in the Air Force. She was on abroad with burn pits. She got the cocktail shots so she could go abroad and get rid of burn pits. She had pre-existing conditions. I had pre-existing bronchial stuff. The first time in life she struggles to breathe. And when she goes back, she gets really sick. So we've had to abandon our house. We're lucky. We can get out. So there are hundreds of people that are sick. If you go to the symptoms page, and you go back over the last few months, you'll see thousands of entries. I received at least 6 emails today from people saying that they're sick. Today. The test. A week after the fire broke out, I didn't see anybody testing. I didn't know anybody testing, and I wanted to know what came out of the plant. And by that time, an industrial hygienist named Michael Pajaro reached out and said, how can I help? And I said, how do we find out what came out of this thing? So we'll do surface wipes. We just need enough people to do it. How many people do you want to do it? I said, I don't know, how many we can get. That was on Thursday. Saturday we got 150 packets that we handed out. Sunday I collected 124 along with Tanya and some other volunteers in our group. Sent them off to a lab in Salt Lake City. They tested it. Now, before we got our results back, Dr. LeVonne from San Jose State, who's been out checking the mud for years, he's a mud guy, it's pretty cool. He released his results, and they showed that in the slough it was up to 1,000 times higher on these metals, as you probably know now. That was the first testing we started hearing something about. And we released our results about 5 days later, far and wide. It's all open source. Everything that we do is open source. It's all voluntary, it's all open source. 2 nights later, Dr. Ayala called me on my cell phone as I was driving back home to our Airbnb, getting out of that air. And he said, your data almost exactly correlates with mine. And our data was done totally differently than his. So that's pretty significant. So what do we find? So up and down the port, we tested for 4 metals because that's what I could afford to pay for. We tested for these 4 metals: nickel, cobalt, manganese, and lithium. And up in Davenport and over in Carmel Valley, a couple other places, we saw that what we would consider baseline, which is they're all about the same, was something like 1 to 5 parts per billion. So we're wiping the surface, handling it properly, getting it all documented, sending it off to the lab. Lab sends us back a bunch of numbers. We put them in a database. We've still got the underlying data, but we put it in a database so we can correlate all this stuff and see how it relates to each other, right? And what we find is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts per billion is in fact in some places 4, 5, 600 parts per billion. What does that mean? It's very difficult to interpret that data. We're still trying. We think we might be making some progress. But it doesn't seem good. And where that was generally between 3 and 8 miles from the plant. Because if you think of that volcano, everything superheated goes up, it stays up there. Moves sideways, it starts to cool down, starts to precipitate out. Highest numbers are 3 to 8 miles out. Our house is between 7.5 and 8 miles out. Highest numbers are in Royal Oaks, Prunedale, reaching over towards Aromas, but Aromas I revisited the other day are not as high. Of course, all the fields. Some of us have been trying really hard to talk to the farm community. It's very difficult. As you can imagine, I mean, they're big corporate farms. There are also a lot of small mom and pops. I think they have an idea what's going on, but they don't know, again, what it means, right? So just because you have elevated numbers, it doesn't mean it necessarily shows up in the food. We can assume it does, but that doesn't mean it does. So I think they're being very cautious. I understand why. I used to be a farmer. I had a vineyard and winery in Virginia. But we haven't really been able to get the information. The conflicting information, and I'm going to wrap it up. The conflicting information, which you might have seen, which seems kind of like nothing to see here, right? Santa Cruz County tested, Monterey County tested. There's a reason for that. They're testing in very small areas typically. And when they're testing, like Santa Cruz, over a little bit more of an area, they're not testing where the numbers were extremely elevated. In fact, their data looks a lot like ours. But where it's really elevated, they're not testing. Now, I'm not sure if that's by design or by just ineptitude. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the people in the county are not very good people who are trying to do the right thing. The government doesn't work the way that citizens can sometimes. But there are some people that are trying to make this go away. And that gentleman right there is running against one of those people. There's no question he would like to see this go away because they're so vested in this technology. I want us to decarbonize, by the way. I want us to decarbonize. But never get lost landing is about making sure that this never happens again. And if you hear about new batteries, they still burn. Yep. If you hear about single containers, well then it messes up the neighborhood. And the problem is there are hundreds of those being approved to go in, all over the state. Go to our website. There's a map there. There are lots of maps there. There's a lot of information there. Neveragainlostlanding.org. I'm posting more every day. I don't know, I get a couple minutes. Go there. You'll be shocked at what you're learning. So I wish I had good news for you. That's what happened. We're all moving on. We've demonstrated against Senator Laird because Senator Laird is not bringing the cavalry. I know that for a fact. There's some help behind the scenes, yes. Toxicology, environmental teams, financial support, all those things. So, on the positive side, it's a beautiful day outside. We're all here. Community's coming out of this. And that's where the power lies, folks. So, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Brian. I learned quite a few things from that, actually. I didn't know about the nanoparticles. Our next speaker is LeVonne Stone. LeVonne Stone is the Executive Director of the Fort Ord Environmental Justice Network. LeVonne actually fought against the initial construction of this Vistra plant. So that's why she's here today. I thought that was amazing. She saw it before a lot of the rest of the community did. What else do I want to say? She's actually gone all the way to DC in some of her activism against these lithium-ion batteries. So I think, yeah, it's great to have you here, LeVonne. Did you want to come up and speak?
My name is LeVonne Stone. I'm also an evangelist. That's my husband right there, Pastor Donald Stone. He was an infantryman at Fort Ord, and I was at Northwestern University in Chicago when I found out that he had fallen down a mountain with a 100-pound machine gun on his back. And one of his excursions had to stay down there in barbed wire all night because it was so dark they couldn't look for him. So I got a call, and I hate moving. And they said, you better come because your husband had an accident and he has to have an operation. And they told me what happened. So I quit my job at Northwestern and decided to move out here to California. And I tell you what, I was really surprised when I got here because of the fact that we were not allowed to go to certain places, like the city of Seaside, for instance, because that's where most of the black people were. I think I'm black. I don't think black. But I was not allowed to go there. But anyway, my husband took me there one day and I found out that there were other people that looked like me. So anyway, the reason we started the Fort Ord Environmental Justice Network is I found out this base was closing. This huge military training complex where all thousands of families lived. And I decided to go to the meetings and let them know that I wanted to find out what the process was, what was going to happen to us, what was going to happen to retirees, and all of that. And I guess I was too nosy because I got fired. Yes, federal job. And so I decided to take all my stuff, and I found an attorney on Fremont Street, and he was a retired Navy commander who lived in Spanish Bay. And I took my information into him and told him what I wanted to do. He got on the phone, he said, just a minute. He called somebody downstairs. He said, Ms. Stone is here. She's got a lot of stuff. We won't have time to read it, so let's just help her. So they, really? I said, wow, this works. And so we started the Fort Ord Environmental Justice Network and found out that there was, when they started burning, they used what's called alumigel, which is a derivative of napalm. And they sprayed it all around 100 square miles, or whatever you call it, because Fort Ord is as big as the city of San Francisco in acreage. It just don't have the tall buildings. And the city of Seaside rented part of Seaside to the military. And they would be over on the ships on the ocean shooting all the way into Fort Ord. And the city of Seaside was finding all kinds of munitions in their backyards. A couple of people lost limbs and everything like that. Yeah, and nobody really wanted this story to get out. But we started getting them out, so I'm not very popular, and I really don't care. So they kept burning and burning with all these people still there. It was not as many as before, but we were still living there. We lived in Preston Park. My office was in Monterey at the time, at a little facility where some doctor was very nice and gave us a space, not gave us a space, rented us a space. And I got a phone call saying, you better get to the emergency room right now. And I said, for what? They said, your husband's here, he can't breathe. That man right there, he's not little either. And so they said, come right away, don't go to the hospital, don't sign me in, come straight to the emergency room. And I did that. And when I got in there, the doctors would say, where were you exposed to secondhand smoke? And he wouldn't say nothing, he was in tears. And they asked again, I said, the third time I said, we don't smoke, we're not around people that smoke. And he said, I said, the only smoke I know about is the fire that they had a few days ago. And the doctor said, well, that's where he was exposed to secondhand smoke. I called the US EPA office up in San Francisco and told them what happened. And they said, hold on, we'll call you back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, they called back and they said, the Army said they're gonna pay his hospital bill. $30,000 for 4 days in there. And after that, nothing else was ever said. We are not getting compensated. There's people there's not getting compensated. They're not getting anything. There was no help whatsoever. And the thing about it is, I know we're talking about batteries, but I'm talking about health effects from toxins. Hallelujah. Yeah. All kinds of toxins. That's why I have traveled all across the United States. And I also, when we had the strawberries out there, and they had that, I forgot what you call it, I came to Moss Landing because they were having a meeting with the Department of Toxic Substances Control in Sacramento. They were there, and some of the people had asked me to come. And so when I said I wanted to support them, they said, oh, well, this is a meeting for the local people. And we have to ask them if you could speak. Before they said speak, they said yes. And I did get to speak, and I tell you, they got rid of that stuff with those strawberries. They got rid of them a week later, whatever it was. So my thing is, what has happened in Moss Landing, this is unbelievable. I thought they were going to tear the place down. And found out after Nina Beatty gave me a call, they were having a meeting in Castroville again, that said that they were going to bring 600-ton batteries, or how many other ton, and put them in that same place. And we were not allowed to say anything. We listened to all the folks up there, and they told us to write down what we were concerned about on a card. So they just picked a couple that they wanted, and everybody else was just out of the picture. And the thing about it is, it's all about the people. It's all about our communities. And to disrespect the people who live in there that might be affected by whatever it is they're doing, all this so-called technology, to me, that's a crime. It is a crime, because the stuff you cannot see, that's what this whole country and world is fighting for right now. We are fighting for clean air, climate change, and I have been to all of them. I have been to meetings all across this country especially for this area right here. And I've been to the Pentagon. For real. I was part of all the big government establishment they had. Everybody was a representative from every area of government, and then there was me. And this lady took me on a tour in the Pentagon and had me stand in the office of the highest civilian in the land that said, Ms. Stone, if we had more people like you, we would be in good shape. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't say anything, because I was just shocked. And so from that moment on, we kept on fighting against what is happening with technology, about the stuff that comes out and you can't see it, and it's hurting people and it's killing people. And this thermal runoff, with these lithium batteries. They have known about it for a very long time. And it can happen to the same place or battery stack or whatever you want to call it, up to 60 times. And this is the third time for Moss Landing, and this was the worst time for Moss Landing. And there was a lady coming from Los Angeles. She was coming from a fire, and she said she saw all the smoke in the air, black smoke, just going everywhere. And she said she thought she had gotten lost or going in the wrong direction. She said that was the Moss Landing fire. That's what she told me. And it's just a shock to find out that, and you go past those big old smokestacks. I was like, I thought they were going to tear that stuff down. But it looks like something out of a science fiction movie in the first place, and then they're going to put batteries in it. And I'm just really shocked that there is no more care, because people are people everywhere. God created us all, and He created all this land, the whole planet and stuff, for us so we can be safe and have everything that we need. Isn't that right? Yes, that's right. Hallelujah. So that's why I like to say hallelujah. Preach! All right, now you get it. And I'm going to tell you about one time when I was at the meeting with all of the government people, and I would raise my hand, they would never call on me, and one day they did. And I said, you know what? I said, there's one thing about it. We can't make people respect us, but we can certainly look at the fact that we have the right to be here. We all have a right to be here. And God created us just like He did the flowers. You got roses and tulips and daisies and all of that. They're all different and they're all beautiful. And I said we should all think of this when we are talking about ourselves and our communities. And it was so quiet in the room, nobody said anything. And then they asked me to edit the environmental justice resolution that was written by President Clinton. And I did it. And I got it, and I read it in the book. The edit part of it and everything. And so I could just encourage you to keep going. And there ought to be lawsuits all over the place. And I just hope that Fort Ord is going to be recognized, and some of those people that got exposed to all kinds of stuff, that we are the ones responsible. I don't care what government agency you're in if it's in the White House or whatever, it's up to us to let them know it's not okay.
That's right.
If they're representing us, let them represent us. Hallelujah. All of us in our communities and our families.
Our next speaker, I should not have scheduled ahead of myself. I told myself I wasn't going to do that. His name is Gabriel Medina. I think a lot of people in the room already know him, but if you don't, you're not going to forget him. Sorry, I shouldn't build you up like that. Sorry. Sorry, Gabe. I'm sorry. I'm a big fan. So, Gabe is a member of the Green Party. He just got elected in his most recent election. To the Pajaro Valley Unified School District.
Yeah.
So he is a trustee on the board. And what I personally admire most about Gabe is the campaign that he ran, where he just was unapologetically connecting what was happening to the Palestinians to what he saw happening to the people living in his own Chicano community. That was amazing, very, very powerful. It just shocks me when someone can actually win office running on that kind of truth. It's really impressive. So I can't say enough good things about Gabe. All right, sorry Gabe, did I build you up too much? Sorry. All right, anyway, let's hear it for Gabe Medina.
I'll try living up to the hype, I promise.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, I had to write my things down because I know we got a time limit. So, hola everybody, how y'all doing?
Hola.
Pretty good? All right, well, my name is Gabriel Jesse Martin Medina Torres, but y'all can call me Gabe. And I am proud to be the first Green Party member to win an election for the Pajaro Valley School Board Unified School District. So, really a lot of work in the community involved in that. But I didn't really get there by accident. I got here because our people are finally waking up. Because our people are tired of being lied to, tired of being poisoned, and tired of being told, wait our turn. And tired of watching our children suffer while politicians make excuses and corporations count profits. Now, in March of 2023, the levee broke and our town was completely flooded in Pajaro. But let's be honest, the levee didn't break in 2023. It broke decades ago, when our elected officials chose to ignore our community. When they built stronger levees in other places and left ours to crumble. When they told us we mattered, but showed us we didn't matter. The water was just the final result. About 450 of my students lost their schools. Families were displaced and homes were destroyed. Teachers and staff lost personal items they still haven't been reimbursed for. Some families have yet to return back to Pajaro. Our students were bused to unfamiliar campuses, pushed into crowded classrooms, separated from the very roots that kept them grounded. Their school, their neighborhood, their people. And as we tried to recover from that trauma, we were hit again. Not by water, but by fire this time. Not once, not twice, but several times. The lithium battery storage facility in Moss Landing released toxic chemicals into the air. And still, no alarms, no evacuations, no urgent school-wide district warnings were let out. Just a cold email the school district sent to my school saying, close your windows. But how do you close a window that does not exist? At Pajaro Middle School, windows are still missing from the flood. Ceilings were still open, and teachers had no lamps to even use the bathrooms. We had to beg for basic safety. Is that the America they promised us? Some say we should be patient, that we should wait, that these things take time. But I ask, how many more generations have to wait? My great-grandmother waited for sidewalks. My grandmother waited for clean water. My mother waited for a school system that treated her children with dignity. And now I stand here, waiting for windows, waiting for clean air, and waiting for justice. We are told to believe in this system, to trust it. But the system is not broken. It's working exactly as it is designed to. It was not built to protect us. It was not built for the farm worker, for the teacher, for the single mother, for the undocumented neighbor. It was built for the powerful. That's what it was built for. And the powerful think they can dump lithium near us, that they can expose us to pesticides, test asthma medication on our kids, and that they can treat our suffering as a data point on a spreadsheet. But like Corky Gonzalez said, I am Joaquin, lost in a world of confusion, caught up in the world of a gringo society confused by the rules. But we're no longer confused. We see clearly now. We're not a sacrificial zone. We are not lab rats. We are not disposable. We are descendants of those who crossed deserts and mountains, of people who fed this nation, cleaned its homes, raised its children, and bled in its wars. And we are done asking for permission to be treated like human beings. We must demand leaders who are for the people, the planet, and peace, Not another slick politician who shows up with empty promises every 4 years. Not another bureaucrat who says it's complicated. No. We don't need complicated. We need courage. That's exactly what we need. And for those who say this movement is too radical, let me remind you that revolution is not radical when you are fighting for clean air. Let me remind you that revolution is not radical when your children are choking on chemicals. It is survival, it is love, and it is dignity. Our fight is not just political, it's spiritual, it's moral, it's philosophical. We are standing up for basic truth, that our lives have value, that our children's futures are not bargaining chips. And I'll leave you with this. And this is a Nama teaching that says, we eat the earth and the earth eats us. There's a balance, a reciprocity, a sacred relationship that we have to this land. But when the Spanish came in, especially down in Mexico, where a lot of my indigenous families from, they came and they took and they took and they took. And the Nahua told them, that will be your downfall because you have yet to give back to this land. Now the earth is burning, the rivers are rising, and people are suffering. If we're to survive, we must remember who we are. If we're to survive, we must protect each other. And if we're to survive, we must fight like hell. That's what we gotta do. Not just for ourselves, but for every child who deserves a school with clean air, for every elder who wants what it was like before the chemicals, for every farm worker who feeds this country and still gets told their life is worthless. This is not the end of the speech, but this is the beginning of a movement. Viva la tierra, viva el pueblo, and viva la acústica. Gracias, everybody.
Nice to get started about how did I do that? I have to follow that, right? What was I thinking?
Good luck.
Oh, thanks. He lived up to the hype, am I right? Gabriel Medina, now we all understand why he was elected. Wow. Okay. That's such an idiot. Yeah, no, it's great that we have that man on our side. And I know that usually people run for an office like school board only to step up to the next one. Gabe he keeps saying he doesn't want to do that, and I keep saying, you got it. We need you to go to the next one up. But he really cares about his own community. I mean, I think that's really true. So, here I am, kind of a boring speaker. The reason why I care about this issue is that I live just 2 miles from this building. Like, I could have walked here today. And I have a toddler. And when that fire happened, my wife called me up and she said, we gotta go get our son. We can't leave him at the daycare. They have that outdoor playground. Are they gonna let him play outside? And we just said no. And we're like, is it safe? Are they telling us? What are they telling us to do? Should we evacuate? We got him. We brought him home. We didn't know whether to leave Santa Cruz or not. And now, I mean, we're so concerned about his health. As I mentioned earlier, we don't know what to buy at the grocery store. I mean, we do the best that we can. Like New Leaf, they tell you in a lot of cases what farms they come from. So I look at the map. You know, where is this farm located? Is this far enough? I'll send a picture to my wife. Do you think this is far enough? But we don't know. Just like Brian was saying, we don't have definitive answers on this stuff. Nobody really knows how far out this poison goes. So that's why I care. It's deeply personal to me, and I'm angry, and I'm afraid that they're going to do this to us again and again and again if we let them. Yeah. They will. So, a lot of you I met for the first, a few of you in this room today I met for the first time at that event outside of Senator Laird's office. And that, for me, was a really great opportunity to hear how the rest of the community is feeling. And mostly what I heard from Senator Laird's constituents was concern about their own health, the health of their family, questions about the health of the environment, and really, what is he going to do about it? Where is the help that he promised? And they didn't get to talk to Senator Laird. They only got to talk to one of his aides. And I know a number of people that were there that day accused his aide of grimacing. It didn't really seem like he was hearing them. It felt like he was humoring them, like, oh yeah, I'll write this down. Oh, I'll write it down. Oh yeah, yeah. All right, thank you. And then he turned around.
He never wrote one word down.
Oh, did he not? I thought he had a pad.
He had that.
Oh, did I imagine that? Wow,
But
it
he
worked
never-
on me.
he did
It
not
worked
write
on me.
anything
He
down.
got me. So, people walked away from that not feeling heard. And so, let me share you some information about Senator Laird, who's a very popular man in our community. So it's actually kind of controversial for me to talk about this. I've gotten some pushback, but I think it's very important that we know this. John Laird received a $5,000 campaign contribution from the Vistra Corporation in 2024. He got a $1,500 donation from Vistra in 2020. A $3,500 donation from Tesla in 2021. Now remember, Tesla also operates a battery facility on that same site. And then another 1.5K from Tesla, and then another 1K from Tesla. Now, does that mean he's bribed? Not necessarily. It's not a good look. I don't trust anybody that's taking money from those corporations. I see that as a definite conflict of interest. And I think that our community needs to insist that it is a conflict of interest, and this is not okay. So now I want to talk about a little bit about his bill, SB 283, that he's proposed. I do not like SB 283. Maybe there's some people in here who disagree with me. The main thing that I don't like about SB 283 is that it says that the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, one of its codes that has to do with safety for these kind of energy storage facilities is going to be used to certify whether a new facility can be built. And maybe that sounds great. I think a lot of people do like that. But I don't think it's acceptable for the NFPA, which is a non-governmental body and which has direct ties to the industry. I don't think that should be in charge of certifying these new plants. I don't trust it. Guess who sits on the board of directors of NFPA? Christina Francis, Senior Staff Fire and Regulatory Specialist for Tesla. Yeah.
Shame!
Can we trust this body to regulate Tesla's next plant?
Hell no.
Hell no. That's right, Butch. And there are some other problematic members of the board, but I'm not, well, I'll mention one. Brigadier General Mohammed Abdullah Al-Nuaimi, Director General of Fire Protection and Safety Affairs, Civil Defense General Headquarters, Ministry of Interior, United Arab Emirates. Why is one from another country? Why is one from another country going to be on the board of directors of an organization that's going to regulate a battery facility they're going to build next to our hospital here in Santa Cruz? It doesn't make any sense.
Some shared interests.
So this is called the fox guarding the hen house. So we need to, I don't think we should be building any more of these plants, but at the very least, Laird needs to fix this bill so that the NFPA code does not directly regulate anything in our state.
Yeah.
Now, if the state of California wants to consult the code when it updates its fire code every 3 years, fine, fine. But I want public officials who are accountable to us in charge of updating the fire code. So that's a big problem with SB 283, and I think we need to be telling our friends and family about that. Secondly, Don Addis's bill, AB 303. I want to talk a little bit about that. I know that there are even some people in this room that like AB 303, but at the very least, we've got to modify this thing, because AB 303 says one of these plants has to be at least 3,200 feet back from a sensitive site. So that would be like a school, for example, or a farm. 3,200 feet, that's 2/3 of a mile. We found, according to San Jose State, the greatest concentration, the highest concentration of these heavy metals they found were somewhere between 1 mile and 3 miles from the planet, those heavy metals. So what on earth does 2/3 do? It does nothing. And I asked a friend who's an environmental activist who's interacted with Addis in the past, and her guess is that where this 3,200 feet comes from is another bill that had to do with regulating fossil fuel extraction sites. So I think she just copy-pasted that number into this new bill without looking at any kind of data. She just made it up, essentially. And let me talk about one last legislator, Mr. Jimmy Panetta. Guess who the top recipient of campaign donations from the Vistra Corporation was in all of the country in 2024? One guess. Jimmy Panetta. Amazing.
Deep state.
And so some of you may have gone to his town hall that he held about a week ago. I don't know. Yeah, some of you did. I think afterwards it was an activist from Never Again that was asking him about what he's going to do and about this fire. And his answer was, he's working on legislation to provide incentives to these companies to build safer plants. Incentives, which he didn't explain, but I hear that as tax credits.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So his solution to this is essentially to give money to his campaign donors. That's how I read it. That sounds like Washington, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, we got to remove this guy from office for a number of reasons. So I think the demands that I'm going to be making, and I hope other people will join me, is a complete halt to any new lithium-ion storage facilities. I mean, we start with our counties, we work at the state, we all of the above, right? We work on our county supervisors. I know a lot of people are focused on that, and I think that's really smart. We demand that Panetta and Ware give back that dirty money.
Come on.
And now listen, this is not a ridiculous demand. Addis actually did take money from Vistra, and then she gave it back. So we can say to Laird and Panetta, do what Addis did. Give back that dirty money. Why don't you want to give it back?
She still sucks.
Believe me, yeah. There's a lot of problems, especially with 1468, right? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I'm not saying I like Addis, but we have this precedent that we can use to demand that these other people give back the money. And it exposes them for what they've been doing. So, look, lithium-ion isn't safe. My wife works at the university. Neither she or I are scientists that are qualified to understand this stuff, but we saw papers that scientists published. They published these papers where they said, we still don't know how to deal with thermal runaway in lithium-ion. We found another paper that said, there's only public data on how to deal with thermal runaway with cells, not with rack and container size. That's proprietary information that the corporations hang on to in secret. It's a trade secret. And I want to know, how are you regulating the safety of these things if nobody knows in public how you stop thermal runaway at the container level, right? It doesn't add up. That doesn't make any sense at all. So I don't think it's possible to regulate these lithium-ion storage facilities. And lastly, I just want to talk about the fact that there are some alternatives to lithium-ion. Like, opposing lithium-ion is not the same thing as wanting fossil fuels. It's not a choice between coal and lithium-ion, not at all. The most commonly used storage currently in the globe is pumped storage hydro. When you have excess energy, you drive a water pump, push water up a hill into a reservoir, and then when you need to generate electricity, you let it drain down through turbines. And in a lot of cases, what you can do is you can take an existing reservoir, build an auxiliary reservoir next to it at the bottom of the hill, and then you can just cycle it through those. So we could start enhancing these existing reservoirs, or at least let's do a feasibility study. Any of the reservoirs in the state, let's start seeing which of those can be enhanced. Yeah, it's very common. So let's build more of them. Yeah. And then there's also compressed air. I think Ralph was telling me only 3% of reservoirs currently have this kind of system built into it. So there's a lot of opportunity to enhance the ones that are out there. There's also compressed air. There's a couple of those being built in California. The oldest compressed air has been running continuously since 1978 in Germany. Never had a major incident, so it's very safe. It actually has a significant storage capacity, like the ones they're building in California. It's like in the gigawatt hour range, so these are serious. And we've got caverns, we've got mines around here. That's what you need, by the way, for compressed air. You put the compressed air into a cavern or a mine. We've got those around here. Let's do a feasibility study. Let's see if we can do that around here.
Yes, yes.
So those are just two examples, and there's more. I'm not going to get into them right now, although I'd like to. There's lots of options, and I think we do need to be equipped with some of this knowledge for when we're talking to our friends that are environmentalists, because I am talking to them right now, and they really believe that lithium-ion batteries are the only way to stop climate change. So we need to educate ourselves about these other options so we can explain it to them. So with the end of my remarks, I want to say, I encourage you people to switch your registration to the Green Party. It's free. It takes you like 5 minutes online. You can do it with the Secretary of State of California. It sends a very clear message to the powers that be, to the establishment, because the establishment in this state, in this county, in this city is Democrat. So you got to tell the Democrats, we're fed up with this. We're fed up with these dirty donations, with these conflicts of interest. And by the way, the Green Party, like if Butch Ware wanted to take money from Vistra, he couldn't. It's against, I couldn't if I wanted to, even if I wanted to. The party doesn't allow us to. We're prohibited. We'd be kicked out of the party. We'd have to switch our letter from G to D on the ballot. So y'all need to join us. We need to clean up the campaign finance system, and Green Party is one effective tool, I believe. And we can get people elected. You just heard from Gabe. We need more Gabes. Finally, volunteer for Butch's campaign, volunteer for my campaign. We're going to be talking about this. My campaign's going to be talking about this. We're going to be going door to door. So join us. Help us educate our fellow citizens. Thank you. Oh, well, I'm about to tell you. Our next speaker is Mr. Butch Ware. Butch Ware is the Green Party's, presumptive gubernatorial nominee. Yeah, he's running for governor of California. Probably a lot of you... Probably a lot of you are aware that Butch ran with Jill Stein in this most recent presidential election. It was a very courageous campaign that stood unequivocally against what our country has been doing to the Palestinians. I think it was a really brave campaign. And I'm glad I didn't put myself after Butch. All right, come on up here, Butch.
On May 25th, 2020, Derek Chauvin put his knee on the windpipe of one George Floyd in South Minneapolis, about 6 blocks away from where a police officer drew his service weapon on me when I was 18 years old. In over 8 minutes and 46 seconds, Derek Chauvin choked the life out of George Floyd. Some of y'all have seen that video. I still ain't seen that video. I cannot watch that video because the grandfather of my children was also murdered unarmed by police. Andrew Harper, Sr., in Painesville, Ohio, the year before I met my ex-wife. I never met her father, never met my father-in-law. The only pictures that I have of my birth father in a suit, and Ware men look nice in suits, generally speaking. The only ones that I have of him in a suit, his face looks like Rodney King, because he's going to court in D.C. to stay out of jail for the beatings that the DC police gave him. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a question. I'm a university professor, a history professor, and I often use a question and answer approach in my teaching. Do any of y'all remember what George Floyd's final words were?
I can't breathe.
Say it again, Nora.
I can't breathe.
I can't breathe. What did he say? He said, I can't breathe. What were people saying after Moss Landing? What was Donald Stone saying? I can't breathe. Because our political authorities are choking us. Do you understand the connection between George Floyd being choked out in 2020 and us coughing and choking and inhaling toxic fumes? There is toxicity in our air because there is toxicity in our politics.
Yeah.
They are poisoning the air we breathe. They are poisoning the water we drink. They are poisoning the soil from which we are, in the Abrahamic tradition, ourselves made. Creatures made of earth and water. And they are poisoning us, and they are poisoning the earth, and they are poisoning the water. The baseline level of toxicity in our environment is predicated on that baseline level of toxicity in our politics. These people will poison you with nickel to make another nickel. They will send children down into mines to die in the Congo to sell your cell phone for 10 cents less.
Say that.
Those lithium batteries with the cobalt and the coltan and the nickel, there is not enough lithium in the planet to replace fossil fuels, I repeat. There is not enough that could be dragged out of the ground. So this is not about sustainable energy. It is about infinite profits. It is about extraction. And that is always felt most brutally by communities of color. Environmental justice is racial justice. We heard it from Gabe. How you gonna keep the toxins out of your air when you ain't got no windows?
Yeah.
The communities that are the most disadvantaged and impoverished, we have been choking for decades. We have been choking for centuries, and we've been screaming, I can't breathe. Maybe now some of y'all can hear. Maybe now some of y'all can hear, because the efforts to extract more and more so that they can squeeze another nickel is now poisoning everyone's air. It's poisoning everyone's water. And it is poisoning our political environment. Because in order to do it, these two corporate parties, Team Blue and Team Red, poison us against one another. They have nothing to offer except fear and hatred. And through fear and hatred and divisiveness, they control us. They teach us to hate our neighbors, to not have concern for the harm that reaches our neighbor down the road because they don't look like us, or they don't pray like us, or they're too worried about what somebody does in the privacy of their own bedroom to think that that is another human being that has dignity and is worth protecting. So they introduce these toxins into our political environment. And what is the ultimate outcome? They are literally turning our communities into a fiery hellscape. You cannot put water on a lithium fire and put it out.
Yeah.
It just continues to burn like the fires of hell itself. They are turning our planet into a hellscape. And for what? Another nickel.
Yeah.
Where are they planning on spending it?
Palestine.
When all of the water is poisoned, when all of the air is poisoned, when all of the soil is poisoned, we have to save these people from themselves. Sean mentioned our presidential campaign. We finished third in that campaign. I ain't finishing third no more. Not in running for governor in the state of California.
Say that.
And Sean mentioned that we stood firm on the genocide of Palestinians. California stands firm against the genocide of Palestinians. This is a 70-30 or 80-20 issue in our communities. And I will continue to stand firm against genocide. I will continue to stand firm against the extermination of people because they are in the way of people grabbing more resources that they can extract. But I will stand against that genocide because I understand the relationship between the mass murder of Palestinians halfway across the planet in Palestine and the pollution of the earth and the water in East Palestine, Ohio. Another place, just like Moss Landing, where corporate excess and deregulation, the corrupt toxicity in our politics, leads directly to a train derailment with fires that can't nobody put out, that seep into the earth and into the groundwater. Do you understand the relationship between East Palestine, Ohio, and historic Palestine? Do you understand that it is the same toxicity in our politics? It is because Team Blue and Team Red are for sale to the highest bidder, period. They are paid to poison us. They are paid to kill us. They are paid to choke us out. And they send police from cop cities. They sent 200 jackboot thugs to my campus at UCSB to remove 30 unarmed kids from an encampment because they dared to say, "Free Palestine." They are attempting to squash any resistance with this mass repression. We must organize and we must fight back. There was enough ordnance, explosive devices unleashed just in the first 2 months of the genocide against Palestinians to equal the carbon output of the 20 smallest carbon-producing countries in the world. That was the first 2 months of those bombings. This is all one fight. They are going to destroy the planet, whether they do it through these campaigns of mass murder and extermination or through the correlated poisoning of our environment. Their aim is to kill us. When I was on the campaign, I had to explain to somebody who wasn't particularly read in why the Democrats were going to lose the presidential election. And for the record, I said that on August 22nd. I had been on the campaign for less than 2 weeks, and I said the Democrats have no path to victory in this election. People thought I was crazy, but I looked at the numbers. They had lost the Muslims in swing states, and they were never going to get Muslim voters back because Jews don't vote for Nazis and Muslims ain't going to vote for Democrats. You don't vote for people to genocide you. That's just the way that that works. So once that happened, you know, that ship had sailed. So I understood that there was no path to victory, and I had to explain to somebody who wasn't particularly read in on politics, having to be the babysitter for my special needs son. And I said, listen, the Democrats could probably win this election if they stop killing kids.
Yeah,
Because people don't like having their tax dollars used to kill kids.
that's right.
But the thing is that they are getting paid good money to kill kids. And so they're gonna keep right on killing kids. Where's the lie? That's when the young people say, no lies detected. This, if you understand it in its proper proportion, is eschatological. Sorry to be an academic. Eschatology is about the study of death and the end of days. This is a death cult that we are fighting against. This is end of times, extinction level event that we are faced with. And that means we must fight back. We cannot simply allow, as Malcolm called them, the foxes and the wolves to hunt us to extinction. Malcolm said, the liberal is a fox, bares its teeth. You think it's smiling at you, but you're on the menu. The conservative is a wolf. When it bares its teeth, it makes its face into a vicious snarl, leaving the Negro with no illusions as to where he stands. Well, many of y'all are now learning that you are just predators, or sorry, you are just prey for predators who differ only in the modality of the hunt. One hunts through guile and cunning, the other through brute force. We must fight back. I mentioned Malcolm in almost every talk that I give because Malcolm was my path to conversion to Islam and my introduction to the black resistance tradition, the black radical tradition. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X cover to cover in one night when I was 15 years old. It changed my life. And I went to my public school library the next day and I checked out an English translation of the Quran and I read that cover to cover the next night. And that was my initiation into my personal faith tradition, the values that motivate me to stand for justice. But it was also the introduction to the black radical resistance tradition that LeVonne represents so beautifully in her person and in her words. Malcolm said, we are not outnumbered, we are out-organized. Malcolm said, we are not outnumbered, we are out-organized. And he also said, never let your enemy tell you how many of you there are. Never let the man that you are against form your opinions for you. See, we have internalized a discourse that says that we can't beat Team Blue, we can't beat Team Red. But we know that we can. Yeah. We have just simply internalized this defeatist attitude. They bleed just like we bleed. We must fight back, and that means organizing. I'm going to start to bring this conversation to a close by pulling a couple of things together. See, I started with George Floyd being choked out in 2020. And what we saw after that was an uprising, right? We saw, for the first time in my life, I saw more white faces at marches against police brutality than I saw black faces. Had never seen anything like that. A sea change in the constituency of those crowds. And I've been marching against black kids getting killed by police since I was 13 years old. Since I was 13 years old. But this was a change, mass mobilization now around police brutality. Another student of Malcolm, Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, his former name, he said, revolutionaries don't just mobilize. Revolutionaries don't just mobilize around issues. Revolutionaries organize against systems. I'm going to repeat that.
Yeah.
Revolutionaries do not just mobilize around issues. Revolutionaries organize against systems. See, what happened, work with me, because what happened is that we mobilized around the issue of police brutality in 2020. People went out and marched and they protested and they got out in the streets. But did we organize against the system that produced that police violence against black people? No, we did not. And so then what happened? Under Team Blue and on Team Blue's watch in the Biden presidency, police killed more people in every consecutive year. They set a new record for cops killing people. Because we mobilized around the issue, we did not organize against the system. What have we seen in this effort to free Palestine? And I'm going to tell you, on October 11th of 2023, when Representative Katie Porter was recording her video where she says, "I stand with Israel, and Israel has the right to defend itself. Israel has the right to mass murder." I was organizing a Black and Palestinian solidarity event in Santa Barbara, and we marched across the campus on October 21st, 300 plus strong, when people were afraid to say "from the river to the sea" out loud.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all remember what it was like? Because Malcolm taught me that Palestinian liberation and Black liberation are intimately connected. Every single Black revolutionary, not just Malcolm, not just Kwame Ture, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin. James Baldwin said the state of Israel, in 1979, open letter to the born again, he said the state of Israel was not created for the salvation of the Jews. The state of Israel was created for the salvation of Western interests.
Yes.
She already left, but can I get an amen? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Right. So, but what has happened? We saw march after march, and I got to be honest. I was telling my wife, I was like, man, I really should have been in D.C. today, right? But I didn't want to break this date. I did not want to break this date here. And we're seeing beautiful march, beautiful protest. But that is a mobilization around an issue. It is not organization against the system. And that's why 16 months of blue genocide has been followed by 3.5 months of red genocide. Pick your flavor. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Sorry, some people will get that Jonestown reference, and others won't. It's all on the same theme, if you guys notice. It's about poison and toxicity. So, not organizing against the system. And that's why we have not been able to force a lasting ceasefire. Because we have continued to mobilize around issues. I was in Sacramento 3 weeks ago, for an Abolish ICE march. And Abolish ICE, clap for that. Abolish ICE. ICE was founded in the aftermath of 9/11 as a weaponization of American Islamophobia to come take everybody's rights. That's the formation of a Gestapo. That's the formation of a secret police. And us Muslims tried to tell you. But you thought that they wouldn't be coming for you. Exactly. Some knew. Man, people in this room knew. All right. We can all agree on that. But again, people are now trying to protect our immigrant brothers and sisters. My wife, beautiful, sit right, stand up. My beautiful wife sit right here in the front row. Both of her parents came to this country originally undocumented before being documented. My mother-in-law could not see her brother for 23 years because of that border. Breaking up families in this day and age the same way they broke up the families of my ancestors for the same reason, to have an easily controllable, manipulable labor force that you can exploit at will. Because this struggle is a single struggle against white supremacy, a single struggle against imperialism, a single struggle against capitalist exploitation of working people. But we are not organizing. Listen, the earth is going to be killed through this process. The earth is going to be killed through this process because capitalism does not have another way to do it except to destroy and burn through every resource. Sustainable capitalism is an oxymoron. Sustainable capitalism is an oxymoron.
That part.
So where does that leave us? That leaves us with this campaign for governor. And I'm just going to say a few words about that before we close. Political party organizing has played a critical role in every successful modern revolution. And the reason is that political party organizing allows people to channel their energy from mobilization into organization. Instead of standing up on a siloed issue, no matter how important and central and fundamental, and the people of this community standing up to the capitalist exploiters that would choke you to death is of fundamental importance. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that standing for environmental justice was of fundamental importance. I would not be a Green if I didn't believe that standing for environmental justice is of fundamental importance. But it is not enough until you understand the connection between Moss Landing and George Floyd, between George Floyd and a free Palestine, between a free Palestine and dignity and safety for our immigrant neighbors, then you will be incapable of developing the political power that will allow you to effectively transform systems. Mobilization around the issues is not going to be enough against what is coming. What is coming is the most intense assault on our rights and our dignity and our persons that any of us have witnessed in our lifetimes.
It's here. It's already here.
They just getting warmed up.
Yeah.
They are just getting warmed up. And that is why if you want to fight back, then you need to join this political movement. You need to donate to Sean's campaign or to my campaign. You need to volunteer for one of these campaigns because it is going to take organized resistance. Now, electoral politics alone won't do it. We need mutual aid. We need direct action. And that's why when I come to communities, I don't say, come out and vote for me. Our interests align. No. I say, how can we put a political party in service of your liberation movement?
Yeah.
That is what is different about the Green Party, because the Green Party don't have politicians. The Green Party has public servants. And our aim is to provide service to the people, and what the people need in this moment is to organize for a revolution, to organize against the systems that would dehumanize and choke us all. Peace.
Wow, look at this powerhouse of a
Look at this powerhouse of people.
We're gonna have to do another event like this. Yeah.
So I got here a little bit late, and we may have talked about this, but I heard discussion about the toxicity from the fires in the air and on the soil, and I know that they tested it to have heavy metals at 100 times the level that it was before the fire. But what about the water? Because not only is it drinking water, agricultural water, and then it's our Monterey Bay. So have people discovered anything or determined anything about
Well, I
the
know that
toxicity that's happening to the
the
water?
Monterey Bay Marine Lab folks are looking at impacts on the slough and on the bay. I don't know what they're finding, but there are a lot of big brain people, as I call them, they're working on those questions. And I hope that they'll have a meeting sometime in the not too distant future. They're trying to. They've reached out a couple of times to say we're getting together, but it hasn't happened, but I think they're working on it. we've been asking them at never again, help people know what's going on from what they're learning. And then as regards wells, I can only speculate, but I believe that, if you're on a deep well water system, these metals are going to go into the soil, which will filter them. So I think it's reasonable to expect that there shouldn't be any direct water impacts. I'm not a scientist, I just play one on TV, right? But if you have a shallow well, if you're in the Castroville or Prunedale or Royal Oaks area with a shallow well, that could be problematic and you should probably get it tested. But if you're working off of a water system or you're working off of a deep well, I can only believe that you're probably okay for now. And you, in all likelihood, remain okay because the filtering effect of the soils. It takes a long time for these things. And the metals are already there, by the way. It's just a matter of quantity. And it really, the issue is an inhalation or ingestion or something.
And I want to say one thing too. And the ocean is right there. And if it's in the soil, how is that going to keep it from getting into the ocean or into the water?
Fish, it's gonna run off.
Yeah.
The California organic farmers do a lot of testing. Their livelihood depends on having trust in the cleanliness and health of the produce. That's why we pay the extra 10 to 15% for our veggies. They ought to have somebody on this panel, and maybe if we do this again, maybe we could reach out to them and get that perspective, because why pay the extra 15%?
If I can real quick, this is something I've been speaking with someone named Satya Shapiro. She's very focused on the ag community and especially the organic farmers. She's reaching out to them. She's going to be in our email. If you're not on the email list, I'm sending out an email on Tuesday. It'll include a new feature, which will be from Satya. She's a homeopathic person that's working with firemen and women, firefighters who've been injured by lithium smoke batteries. But she's very focused on ag, and she's working very hard to get those answers to the questions you're asking. Those folks haven't totally wanted to be present, it seems. There's been some resistance. I know that the small organic farmers are trying to engage. So she's trying to get that information, and hopefully some of that will be in the newsletter I send out on Tuesday.
I am an organic farmer. We farm in Corralitos, which I was talking to Brian, we're outside the high impact zone, you'd say. But my customer, I do a U-pick apples, and my customers come out of Richmond, Oakland, Santa Clara, San Jose. They come over the hill, they read the news. A lot of them are very, like you, very aware of things that are going on here, and they will come to me and they will ask, are your apples safe? Are your apples safe? I was at the Ag Commissioner, Santa Cruz County's Ag Commissioner's office on last week, like last Wednesday, and I asked, has there been any statement from the Ag Commissioner's office yet on the impacts of the Moss Landing fire on our farming in Santa Cruz County? They have not moved forward on a statement because I think they don't think they have enough facts yet. And being a farmer, we all have fear that if there's any indication that our crops are contaminated, our livelihood is shot. And it's not like our neighbors might be fine and go, yeah, we know you're okay. That plume went the other way. People that we sell to outside this area that kind of lump our lands all together who are very sensitive to news will not buy from us. So just to know, it might be, I told the Ag Commissioner's office, I said, you know what? I'd love to have a little sheet of paper that I could show from your office that says, hey, we were outside the high impact area.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you seeing an impact on your business? Are you seeing a reduction in sales?
Not yet, because apples are a seasonal crop. We will not actually open probably until the end of August or early September. And so I will not see anything until then.
Okay.
But you can be pretty much assured that people are not going to forget.
Yeah.
This is not something that's going to just go away. They will be, calling me in advance of coming to the farm and saying, do you know if your apples are safe? And I can say yes, and most of my customers really trust me because we've had a long-term relationship, right? We've known each other for several years. But it would just really reassure me to have some statement somewhere that says, hey, we're good. You don't have to worry. You can eat my apples. You can just knock the dust off. And
And the numbers in Corliss were quite low compared
Yes.
to
yes.
that circle near the plant that was 3 to 8 miles out where the highest impact numbers were.
Yeah. So hopefully they believe me, but I would feel so much better if we had some kind of real, honest, official document.
I'm working with the Ag Administration Office, and I get documents from them, and I want to know what the new system they have when they move one contaminated spray to something else. So I can help to follow up with you, and they should give you something in writing. You should feel bad about it, you should keep on it, and I'll help to make sure that you get something.
Thank you.
One of the foremost principles of the environmental justice movement globally, because your apples, you know, alhamdulillah, you know, hallelujah, are likely okay, right? But a lot of people's apples ain't gonna be okay. And the thing is that a fundamental principle of environmental justice movement is two simple words: polluters pay. Right? Polluters pay is a basic principle that the Democratic government of this state has systematically elided. They do not hold polluters responsible when ecological disasters are caused by their slipshod, unregulated exploitation. So that is something that a change in leadership can direct. Because as far as I'm concerned, every single one of those farmers that can no longer, with a straight face say to their neighbors, my apples are safe, they need to be compensated for every single penny that they lose by those polluters, not by the taxpayers.
And actually, I would like to mention one thing, and I don't remember the town, but there was some kind of mining disaster, and it poisoned the town. And the federal government declared an emergency, and it made every resident eligible for Medicare. Wow. And I think that we as a community should start learning some of the details on that. Look, everybody who lives within, I don't know how many miles, but we've got, Brian would know much better than I would, but we should say that's a disaster zone.
Call John Laird. I've been trying to get him to do things like this for the last 3 months. I've been meeting with him and hammering him, and nothing.
When's he up for election again?
He's done. He's in his final term, and it turns out in 2028, so he doesn't have
that's
any
wonderful.
short of a recall.
And if I could add too, if you look at my area, I'm in Area 3, which is the very northern part of the county. I have 3 schools that are dead center between fields, right? And just recently, Safe Ag, Safe Schools actually went and lobbied, and now we actually have a system when they're gonna spray so we can notify the schools that that's gonna happen. Because if you look at my area and the tests that go on, we have a high rate of autism, ADHD, and cancer. Of course. High rate of that. So, it is totally criminal. And why would you put students next to fields, right? And, my grandma was sprayed, and that just traveled down. My mom had low autism, and we just see it in our family, even with ADHD right now. So these are things that are happening right now, and it's the young kids who can't even stand up for themselves to know that that's going on. So that's why we need people to go for school board who have that knowledge about what's being sprayed, how it's being sprayed, what chemicals are used, and why we're not having a bigger buffer zone for those schools.
And I do want to make a quick distinction between industrial agriculture and small farm agriculture. There's a fundamental difference.
Absolutely.
And so we can't put them all together.
That's right.
Because small farmers are using responsible spraying methods. Industrial ag is exactly that. Industrial, the word comes first. This is the world we live in, and I'm not making them into bad guys. But it's it's a fundamentally different business when you're running thousands of acres and what you're putting on that to turn it 3 times a year. That's a totally different thing than what we see the small farmers do.
And I want to mention one thing related to this, which is that the Green Party of Santa Cruz County and the Green Party of Monterey County, I sit on the council of Santa Cruz County, Gabe sits on the council of Monterey County. And so, oh, is Audrey here?
Yes.
Audrey,
Audrey just slid in. Audrey said, I'm on the
So Monterey County and Santa Cruz County have both endorsed a boycott of Driscoll's berries that has been proposed by CORA, Coalition for Organic and Regenerative Agriculture. It's mostly educators out of South County as far as I can tell. But we are calling for a boycott of Driscoll's because they're spraying these pesticides right next to schools and we need to get them to stop that. So boycott Driscoll's.
That family, the wonderful family, you know.
Resnick.
Yeah.
Oh, the
The
resonance.
pistachio farmers.
That's
Yeah.
The pistachio farmers who privatized California's water
Water
supply
system.
and also understood that prior to their making of the pistachio a sort of wild, like consumer sort of item, that Iran was the major supplier of pistachios in the world, and they've reliably been an advocate for fortified sanctions and even war against Iran. And they also support organizations like Friends of the IDF.
Super big Zionists, the Resnicks are, and have been warmongering against Iran, and using their billions to try to lobby Congress to try to essentially make war against Iran because it will take out the world's #1 pistachio supplier. It'll take out their principal competition.
Christine, you?
And they're so evil. And they're so,
It's like cartoonishly evil.
What's the difference between responsible spraying and industrial spraying? You're spraying pesticide, what's the difference?
Well, the difference is that typically, as a former farmer myself with the vineyard, we would use more organic products, things that are based upon the environment. There are uses for the pests where you can put out traps rather than using heavy-duty sprays. So there are differences in the way, there's a whole variety of products that you can use, and you can choose ones that are far less damaging to the environment or toxic to life.
You need to find out
Got a
what
comment
those
or
are.
question?
yeah, and small farmers are very often the next person that goes into the field. So they're also looking out for themselves. Their family lives right there on their end. They don't want anything that's broadcasting and spread over and contaminate the whole field. A plug for small farmers, but I was just looking at the paper trail. Back in 2014, California had about the 100-year drought, 3 or 4 years of the driest years in a row that the state has ever had. Second year of the drought, Stuart Resnick wrote a letter to Dianne Feinstein, who was our senior U.S. Senator in California, and told her that he wanted her to broker a emergency declaration that would free up water that was already, water in the rivers was already so low that the salmon were not able to spawn. Whole watersheds were becoming dead zones, and she got her to go to Mr. Obama.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, Sean, you were speaking about Gabe, you know, and his leadership, and I wanted to just illuminate something. I mean, this area is extraordinarily poorly served by our elected officials at the local level, at the California legislature level, in every single which way possible. Some had the audacity to be present at what happened earlier today, which was a pushback event, like Gail Pellerin. There are members, these are members of, we have a disproportionate number of local officials who are part of the Legislative Jewish Caucus, or as Marcy Winograd says, the Legislative Israeli Caucus, or Israel Caucus. And we also have Panetta, who's received almost $250,000 in money from APAC. And Gabe Medina came from the community, came from below, was authorized by a community that was struggling against scurrilous charges of anti-Semitism against ethnic studies. And it was the community that flipped 3 seats on the PVUSD school board, and Gabe Medina is someone who is responsive to the community, so I just wanted to give that additional context. And I wanted to say something too, to the comment about the decommissioning of Fort Ord and the pollutants that are there, and to realize that in Monterey there's something called Injin Parkway. And that, do people know where that comes from? It comes from Korea. Injin is Korea. Injin is from Korea. And so Fort Ord was a site where soldiers were sent, GIs were sent, to fight in US wars in Asia that killed millions of people.
Yes.
And so that contamination that is there corresponds to untold, out of sight, out of mind devastation.
Yes.
Over there, so to speak. And I want to mention that in Santa Cruz, so this is something that I hope that we can talk about and lift up. Tyree Ritchie self-immolated down the street earlier this year on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, on the day of the inauguration. And that self-immolation was an act of witnessing to systems of violence that people here oftentimes don't discuss in this area that is very white and very liberal.
I really was hoping to find out more about the actual soil problem and the vegetables that we want to buy and fruit that we want to buy. I have lots of friends in Chicago, Iowa, Ohio, and Maryland. And they are all boycotting. They have done deep, deep dives into this Moss Landing thing. They're all boycotting the produce coming from here. That is going to have an impact, because I'm sure there's other states that are doing the same thing. We don't seem to know a damn thing about it here. And I would like to know, why don't we know what is in our lettuce?
Come on.
We have a fire team of folks, it's not a big group, that's trying to find the answer to that. And if you want to join them and get involved in that, they need help. They're trying to find answers. We've heard from the Farm Bureau directors for both counties who have been basically saying the same thing. There's basically a script that they're working from. Nothing to see here. The numbers look fine. Don't worry about it. The Ag Commissioner for Monterey County is taking almost the exact same language. So there is, at least at some level, a certain amount of agreement as to what the response to your question is. And I think that for many it's unsatisfactory. But the only way we're going to get the answers is for people in this community to do the research, put in the time, and find the answer themselves, because nobody's going to give it to us.
Yeah.
Who is that?
If you go to neveragainmosslanding.org, you send me an email, I'll connect you with those people, and you can work with them to try and find the answer to your question.
And if I could just add just a small, follow-up to that. So you don't know because they do not want you to know.
Yep.
Right.
Okay? And that, again, is a question of leadership. So from this angle, we have to do exactly what Brian describes. We have to take this burden upon ourselves and to try to address this crucial issue. But the way that you will actually resolve the problem is to put people in power who are not beholden to the corporations and therefore will have no compunction whatsoever about telling you what's in your damn lettuce. And if the ingredient list has more than one word in it, right? It's like the ingredient list on your lettuce should be lettuce, right? It shouldn't be lettuce, trace amounts of cobalt, nickel, coltan, some sulfur, you know what I mean? So in the end, like these are all issues that we have been conditioned, and we have to fight. We have to fight on the field that we're on now. But the thing is that the way that we win is by changing the nature of the game. You change the nature of the game by organizing for political power and putting people into positions of authority that will actually represent the people rather than the corporations. The Declaration of Independence does not say, "We the corporations." What does it say? That's what it says. So that is the crucial issue. And it's underlying all of these problems. We keep having to take these extraordinary efforts of mobilization because the people that we have elected to represent us represent corporate interests instead of ours.
I think there's time for one more question. One more question.
And also share those.
Please. Let's hear it for Audra.
My name is Audra Walton. Good afternoon, everybody. I am the Vice Chair of the Planning Commission in the City of Medina. I am also on the Monterey County Green Party County Council, and I'm going to invite all of you, if you haven't already, go on over to cagreens.org and find either Sean or Gabe, myself. Send us an email, let us know where you are so we can plug you in. We've got a lot of work to do as Greens to mobilize, to educate, to motivate, to get people out of their living rooms and into the streets the way we see everybody else that's fighting against. I'm not quite sure, but we need to make as much noise as they are. I'll just tell quickly my story. I commute from Marina to Gilroy to work. Now I'm just in Salinas, but I was commuting during the fires, and I coughed up 2 blood clots. They were nasty and thick, and I've had to go through, now I'm going through all the series of crazy, I'm part of the Vistra lawsuit. It's scary, to wake up one morning, you're normal, and just fighting the good fight, all the regular stuff that's going on, and then now, you're coughing up blood clots. And so, oh, we got a question.
Specifically for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think one huge concern is the health, right, of the community. And I know for a fact that it was a delayed impact on your health. And people don't even realize, like, oh, I need to get tested. And you had insurance. And so many people don't have insurance. So I don't know if anybody knows, like, are there any, is there more awareness being spread about like the actual health impacts or where they can go or what they can do or what they can have tested or, like that's a whole other world.
From this guy's Facebook, the community on Facebook is where I've been able to access anything. My leadership, my mayor, who's Bureau of Land Management, is supposed to be here today. I don't see him, Mayor Delgado of Marina. But I was hoping that we would be able to have some questions specifically to one of our local leadership. But here we are in this space. I don't know where he is.
They're hiding.
But I did want to say that, cagreens.org, find us. We're going to be doing a lot this next couple of years.
And the best place I know of right now to get information about health impacts is the website, neveragainmosslanding.org. We're putting a lot more there. I'm basically loading it up. And additionally, on Facebook, what we call the symptoms page, the Moss Landing Vistra Fire Symptom page, which my wife set up on the Saturday after the fire. There are thousands of entries there, and at the very least you'll find community. There's also, she and Sheree Goins have a support group that's actually meeting once a week, generally on Sundays via Zoom, to talk to each other, because there are some people who are isolated and who are sick. So it's a place where you can go and talk to other people. There aren't solutions there, but there's support there. So all of this is possible through that site, and if you click, there are chats in there, there are subgroups up at the top on Facebook. You can click and find it, and then additionally the website, and more information is going there all the time.
Nice.
And one last thing, because this gets to a lot of these issues. The County of Monterey posted its first health notice to the medical community on February 13th, almost 1 month after the fire. And part of the reason, and that was because we started hammering them about a week and a half earlier after we met with them in Castroville. I think they're good people, but they're cautious people. They were waiting for guidance from the state, and it wasn't coming. And they waited and they waited, and meanwhile the medical community was dismissing people going in with injury. And they thought those people in some cases were nuts. So there's a bad story here about incompetence and about fear and about not being willing to take risks and to try and do the right thing. And that's kind of the definition sometimes of bureaucracy. And unfortunately, there are good bureaucrats and there are bureaucrats who aren't so great.
We have to protect the farmers too. And, you know, I've heard that several of them have thrown up, you know, their farms and left.
Well, several of them actually had to work afterwards, even though that plume was right over us. Some fields got called off, but other quadrants, they still had to come in during that time. And some of their students, because they're in multifamily households, we could not close any schools down. It was just impossible for us to do that because we would have students at home with no meal, no supervision. You know, they would probably open the windows, go outside. So we made that distinction when the fires were happening, not to shut down like Monterey did, but keep it open for our farm worker students who don't have those resources.
Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. We got to put all the tables and chairs back how they were, and then they're going to kick us out. So, but thank you everybody for coming out.